That's good. Good job.
Good evening and welcome to the Fredonia Central School District Board of Education meeting for Tuesday, February 9th, 2021. If everyone would join me in standing and pledge the flag, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So we start each meeting with a public session. The board has reserved this time to hear comments from the audience. Those wishing to address the board are asked to stand, give their name and address, and limit their comments to 5 minutes or less per individual or group. Concerns and comments during this session should be directly related to items listed on the proposed agenda for this meeting. Audience members seeking a response should complete a board correspondence sheet and return it to the district clerk, Cristina up front here. Audience members are asked to adhere to social distancing regulations when addressing the Board of Education. Is there anyone here who would like to address the board on anything with the agenda? No? Okay. So we have a proposed consent agenda. Adoption of the consent agenda upon a motion and a second and an affirmative vote by members present approves each and every item so designated. However, prior to the adoption of the consent agenda, any board member may remove any item from the consent agenda. This item will then come up for discussion as part of the regular agenda. The purpose of the consent agenda is to expedite routine matters so the board has more time to deal with more substance matters. So we have a proposed agenda. If I could get a motion and a second from the board to bring that to the floor, please. Ms. Powell-Fortna and Ms. Gullo. Is there anything anyone would like to pull out of the consent agenda? Are we all okay? Okay. Okay. If that's the case, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Wonderful. So first thing here is the approval of minutes from the last meeting. If I could have a motion to bring that to the floor, please. Ms. Gullo and Mr. Johnston, thank you. Any concerns, questions, edits? Yeah, Ms. Slagle always does a great job. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Wonderful. So we have two 31-day, I believe it's 31-day. The first one is, but we have two emergency transportation bids with first student. The first one is from January 28th through February 27th at a cost of $250 a day. Could I have a motion to bring that to the floor, please? Mr. Hawk, thank you. And a second? Second. Ms. Powell-Fortna, thank you. Any comments, questions on that?
John, anything to speak on that?
Pardon me?
Do you have any reason for the emergency?
Both of these are the same. They're temporary situations dealing with the homeless situation. So we're expecting at least one of them to be very short term.
And so that is the students who have moved out of the district for a temporary?
Yes.
Okay. 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 All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Next, we have a very similar one with a different destination from February 8th through March 10th at a cost of $113.57 a day. Can I have a motion to bring that to the floor, please? Thank you, Mr. Forrester. And a second? Second. Ms. Gullo, thank you. Any questions on that? And again, it's a very similar situation, Mr.
Yeah, very
Forrester?
similar. I'll just mention briefly the difference in the price. The second one we were able to hook up with Dunker, who also uses First Student and combines some services there, so that's why it's less money.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Next, we have the approval of mileage reimbursement, and that is changed to 0.56 cents per mile. Can I have a motion to bring that to the floor, please?
So moved.
Mr. Johnson, thank you. And a second?
Second.
Mr. Hawk, thank you. Any questions on that?
Yes, Mr. Aldridge, if we could, the 560 is actually the IRS established rate, and by contract, we need to be 1/10 of a cent less than that, so that it becomes a non-taxable reimbursement. So it actually should read 559, not 560 in the motion.
Thank you. Okay. So what I'm going to do is, I believe Mr. Hawk, you made, Mr. Johnston made, and Ms. Gullo seconded it.
Mr. Hawks.
Mr. Hawks, all right. I have a very short-term memory. I'm going to go back to you and say, are you okay with changing your motion and second to 0.559 instead of 0.560? You're okay with that? Okay. And Mr. Hawk, we got this just procedural. You're okay, Mr. Hawk?
We're good.
Wonderful. Okay, so, and again, that is 1/10 of 1 cent below the federal allowed reimbursement rate. So, for taxation, I should say. Any questions on that? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Next, we have a approval of a resignation for purposes of retirement from Cara, Cristina. Can I have a motion to bring that to the floor, please?
So moved.
Ms. Gullo, and a second?
Second.
Ms. Powell-Fortna. Ms. Cristina has served this district for 25 years, hard to believe. Been a wonderful teacher in the middle school, and we appreciate her 25-year service to the district. Any comments, questions on that? No? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Wonderful. Congratulations to Ms. Cristina, and we wish her the best. We have the approval of a donation of 23 copies of the novel The Lightning Thief. It's a donation to the Fredonia Middle School on behalf of Chris Anderson and his family. Could I have a motion to bring that to the floor, please?
So moved.
Mr. Forrester, and a second?
Second.
Ms. Gullo. Any questions on that? I always appreciate it when we have books donated to our schools. I think that's helping to teach our students that that's a very important aspect of their learning. So I appreciate Mr. Anderson and his family doing this. All those in favor of approving the donation, could you please signify by saying aye?
Aye.
All opposed? Wonderful. We got some time here. So the board has reserved towards the end of this meeting to hear comments from the audience. This can be in regards to anything, not just what's on the agenda. Those wishing to address the board are asked to stand, give their name and address, and limit their comments to 5 minutes or less per individual or group. Audience members seeking a response should complete a board correspondence sheet and return it to our district clerk, Christine Slagle. Audience members are asked to adhere to social distancing regulations when addressing the board. Is there anyone who would like to address the board on anything tonight? Okay. So next we have superintendent's report. Mr. Ziliaks, we've got quite a few things going on.
Absolutely, and thanks for everybody for being here tonight. A couple different things to run through tonight as part of the board update for today. First of all, circling back to some of the entry questions that were mentioned at our last meeting, and then transitioning into some thoughts around mission, vision, and core beliefs for the district. Also wanted to touch on the return to school plans and give an update on that. We have a half day coming up on Friday, wanted to touch base about that. Athletics are back in full swing. In fact, there's a basketball game probably underway right about now, happening in the gym. And also we have an offer from a community member to help support families or students who might not have access to the internet. So that's a little overview, but remembering that I mentioned on several occasions, I did some entry interviews upon coming into the district, as well as some surveys that went out to our faculty, our staff, our students, our community members, our parents, our administration, and I got a lot of great feedback and learned a lot about the district, and that was really the intent of those entry surveys, to ask questions, listen and learn, start to build relationships with our stakeholders, and gain knowledge of the district. And then I began to share information back from that information and identify areas where we see ourselves being strong and some areas where we have some room to grow. And I think naturally out of that process comes some consideration of next steps and how do we move forward as a district. And 2 weeks ago at this same meeting, I did mention that as a result of this information, we begin to formulate some questions around things that we need to consider as a district. And those were around communication and decision-making, vision and mission. How do we set goals in the district? How do we put technology in the hands of students and adults? How do we manage curriculum? How do we guarantee that all students are supported in our learning environments? How do we incorporate in reading and literacy into our coursework and our curriculum as well? And how do we select PD that we will offer and deliver to our faculty and staff? And the one question I think that jumps out initially as a starting point for my time here and for us moving forward as a district is, do we know and share a common mission, vision, and core beliefs across the district? And sort of tonight, that's more of a rhetorical question, just getting people thinking about where we might stand with that. But it does bring us back to these concepts, and you guys are probably familiar either within the school district or in your professional lives with some of the work around mission. And the mission is very simply a statement that explains our purpose. I included an example here from Apple Computer, where you see that it talks about what they strive to do as an organization. It talks a little bit about the stakeholders that they're looking to serve in their mission statement, so students, educators, professionals, and consumers, and a little bit about how they will address what they strive to do through innovative hardware, software, and internet offerings. So that's a little bit about a mission statement. You will see that our mission statement is always on the front of our board packet here for each of our meetings. And the question is really across the district, do we know what this mission statement says? And do we believe and share that this mission is worthy of our schools? And this is, in fact, what explains our purpose on a day-to-day basis here at Fredonia. Thinking a little bit about vision. Vision is a statement that's motivational. It's what we aspire to become. And usually a vision statement is bold. Some use the word an audacious vision statement that we hope inspires people around us. SpaceX, in my mind, has a pretty aspirational vision statement currently to revolutionize space transportation and make life multiplanetary with millions of people living in space. So SpaceX, that is what they foresee for themselves moving forward. It's that desired state, it's a motivational state, it's an aspirational state of where they see their organization going. Core beliefs. These are typically core values that drive both behavior and decision-making. A couple examples here from Amazon. One is this idea of what they call customer obsession, and they say that the customers are at the top of the company's interest, not competitors, not other websites, not other businesses, just the customer and their interest. So one example of one of their core beliefs. They have a couple more I thought were interesting. Invent and simplify. So they basically talk about making things as simple as they possibly can, while being open to innovative ideas and always being willing to take a look at those ideas and potentially implementing whatever is the best plan. They also talk about ownership as a core belief. They say in their statement, no one who works for Amazon ever says that's not my job. Everyone is responsible for the overall company's success. Amazon strives to build long-term relationships with customers, third-party vendors, and employees. So just some examples of core beliefs from a fairly successful business that is out there. So again, not a question I'm looking to have answered tonight, but just us to consider where do we stand with our mission in terms of it being well known in the district, and is it a shared mission across all stakeholders? Same thing with our vision and our core beliefs. I think that potentially revisiting these concepts in the district and rethinking, and not necessarily with the thought that something needs to change, but just reviewing these statements and asking ourselves those questions. And do we know as a district what that purpose is on a daily basis? Do we know what we're striving for in the future? And do we have a superset of values that are driving our behavior and our decision-making? In other districts that I've worked in, my experience is that all three of these things bring great clarity to what we're trying to accomplish as a district, both short-term and long-term. And they also help really refocus not only what we're hoping we see in the behavior from both adults and students, but also really clarifies the reasons that we make decisions. And hopefully all of those decisions push us toward that shared vision that we're all striving for together. So more information on that to follow. Tonight is sort of an introduction to this idea of revisiting mission, vision, and core beliefs. As you know, we've had a committee together of about 34 people working in our return to school. Again, this was the thought of bringing stakeholders together, planning for next steps, being as proactive and forward-thinking as we could possibly be, thinking about allowing buildings and building levels to gather and meet and create concepts and plans, and then bring those to the committee for feedback and responses. We've been able to piece together some clear plans while still being ready to adjust and adapt to those things that might happen in real time. So I just wanted to remind people that at the various grades, we have different levels of plans to return to school. Some of them involving coming back into the building 4 and 5 days. Some a little bit less, and these are really based on some limitations of space in the building and also the size of a class. For example, our 6th grade is very large, about 125 students. It's difficult to bring them back into, let's say, 5 or 6 rooms as opposed to a class of 70 or 80 students. But we have been thinking and planning and processing how will that look at each of our grade levels. We also recognize that it was extremely important in this planning process to understand for those families that have students are fully remote or are at private schools, might they return at some point during the school year? Will they stay in those models? So we sent out a survey really to gauge their intentions for the remainder of the school year, and we've got more feedback tonight, and I did send an update out to our RTS committee a little bit prior to this meeting. So as you might remember, we sent out an initial survey that was sort of general and to try to catch as many people we could right off the bat. We followed up with emails that went directly to those families. Calls to those remaining families who have not responded will start from the building level tomorrow. And we hope to have a clear picture of the status of both the fully remote and private school students by the end of the week. We have about 300 responses at this time, but we still have about 200 responses we still need to obtain. From the 300 responses, we have about 65% of those families indicating that they will remain in their current model. So that is encouraging. If that trend continued at most grade levels, this will provide opportunity to move forward, to continue planning and take next steps towards our return to school. I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. I don't want to count anything before it hatches, but that is an encouraging piece of information, but also recognizing that 200 additional responses, both remaining in their current model and or planning to return to the building, could sway that number. So that's just a kind of a tentative initial feedback from the 300 responses we do have. So as always, I want to thank the committee for what they've done and the time that they've put in. I'd like to thank the Board of Education and our administrators for facilitating these conversations and supporting our efforts. We will continue to move forward as best we can, and we'll have more information on the way. Don't forget, if you do have any questions about any of that or what that might mean at the elementary, middle, or high school, or Wheelock, or involved with students with disabilities or who are involved in special education, please reach out to any of our principals or our directors who would be more than happy to answer any questions that you might have. Athletics, exciting time in most school districts, at least in Section 6. We've had swimming and bowling up and running from the beginning of this season, but we also approved high-risk sports as of late, which for us means basketball, which began practice on February 1. Our first basketball game is tonight versus Eden. There are no spectators allowed, so thanks to our AD, Mr. Lauer, and some of our tech support, we do have live streaming of any of these events on our website currently, and we might be able to take a quick look into the gym right now and see what we can see. So it looks like it's 28-12 and with about almost 6 minutes left in the second period. And the quality of, looks like it must have been a technical here.
Perfect time.
So as you can tell, the clarity of this camera is pretty good. It does follow the action back and forth across the court, which we should be able to see in a minute or so here. That's good, Cristina. So if you get home and you go to our website, you can tune in if you would like, or probably by your phone for most people as well.
Dr. Zimmerman? Oh, yeah.
I was gonna say the same, probably the same question you have. Can people look at this and, like, is it recorded and is it on there all the time? Like, so you can go back if you missed it?
Yes, absolutely.
I was actually going to ask, was this new technology, and is somebody manning, like, do we have somebody that's manning that camera for the different athletics?
No, it's all automated, and that's what it does.
That's amazing. And can we have this, and if swimming is going on the same night, or can both be going on?
Yep, there are two different links, one for basketball, and I think the other is swimming and bowling, and also if and when modified basketball starts, that will be through that link too.
That's amazing. That's great.
So yeah, if you look at it in the gym, you probably wouldn't even recognize it as a camera. It's really just a small box.
That's great.
It's pretty impressive. And also tonight, you could see it on the screen, but you probably weren't aware. We absolutely want to thank the First Ward Falcon Club for their generous donation in memory of Roger Pecos for all he has done for the district. And I didn't know if anybody wanted to speak to that, who would have a little more history than I do, obviously.
Yeah, well, Roger was a wonderful teacher here in the district who retired just a year and a half ago, I believe. And unfortunately, he passed away just a few months ago and took everyone by surprise. It was a tragic thing for our district, and he was very active in a lot of things. So we came up with this, or the First Ward Falcon Club came up with the scorers table, which is a wonderful tribute to Mr. Pecos.
And I just want to say, from somebody not from, although I grew up in Jamestown, not from the area recently, and not being connected to Fredonia, you hear these names and the stories and just people sharing some information about people who came before me or became before us. And I recognize, especially as a social studies teacher, the importance of history in a district, and you really hear about that legacy, and it's motivational to keep things going in the district in an extremely positive way. And you really want to live up to those expectations of those people who paved the way for what our district looks like today. So for me, it's motivational and inspiring to hear about people like Roger, and really makes me be extremely diligent and hardworking in what I'm doing here. So I keep the good things that are happening in Fredonia and have happened in the past going and moving forward, and I live up to those expectations that were set pretty high by people like Roger. So it's great to see how one person can have an impact across the district on people who they never met, or I never met in this case. But you really feel the gravity of that good work. So, last couple of things, we do have a half day on Friday. And this day is really going to focus on parent communication from our teachers by phone over the course of that day and leading up to that day. And, we were trying to strike a balance here of honoring the district calendar and honoring the spirit of this day, while not adding another layer of complexity to this school year and the things that are going on during the pandemic. So we look forward to our teachers reaching out. We're going to ask parents to please consider answering a call that might come in from an unfamiliar number. You might not know this, but we only have 23 landlines in the district. So there will be some teachers who are comfortable using their phone with star, was it 67? 67, which masks the caller. That usually shows up, I believe, as no caller ID. We also have a couple other tools through the district where a different number can come up so people aren't sharing their cell number. So we're just asking parents to be on the lookout for that and be open to answering a call that might look like sometimes somebody calling to ask if you'd like to extend your car warranty, or some other telemarketer or something along those lines. So we did notice, and I got a couple emails about this week, that if we remain in this current model, we do have another couple days coming up, another half day on March 12th and a conference day on March 19th, I believe it is, and they both take place on a Friday. So we are looking at ways that if we are in the hybrid model still, we can vary those days so it's not always falling on a Friday and those students lose more instruction than the other group that is Tuesday, Thursday. So we're looking at that. We're going to process and see what we can do to minimize those days always falling on a Friday, or adjust other days to compensate. Lastly, we do have an offer from a community member who has indicated that if there are families or students who do not have access to internet, that this family would very much want to help with payment for that. I'll be sending an email to our principals with some contact information. As there is a family or a student who does need some support here, I would ask that you reach out to your building principal, and then we can make some connections in between families and this individual who is really just looking to extend an invitation and some generosity to the Fredonia community. So we thank everybody involved in supporting our district, and some going above and beyond. But there is an offer there, and I would encourage any family or student who could use assistance around internet to reach out and make that connection. So just a FYI there. And with that, I'll open it up to some questions, either from our board administrators or our guests tonight. And thank you for coming. If there's anything I can clarify, I'd be more than happy to do that. Anybody have anything? Okay.
I got one question. Did we add to the new business the addendum?
That is in consent.
Okay.
The addendum was part of consent. Yeah. But thank you for your updates. There was a lot there, and but I appreciate that, and I appreciate your communication, keeping everybody in the loop here, and we can never do too much of that. As we've talked before, I appreciate your comments on a mission statement, a vision, our goals, what we're expecting to do here in the district, and it's something that we have wanted to do for a while, and as we spoke before, we didn't want to throw that at you the first day. We appreciate you getting to understand the district so you could have some involvement within that discussion, so that you knew, you could tell from experience of the district about that vision, about that mission statement. And I appreciate your the mission statements you brought from Apple and Amazon and SpaceX. I think that those are great examples, and keeps us thinking lofty. And we're only going to get better if we set that bar high. So, thank you.
Sure, thank you.
So the next regular meeting of the Board of Education is February 23rd. That's in 2 weeks at 6 o'clock right here in the school library. As Mr. Hawk had mentioned, part of our consent agenda was I would just like to say thank you, Darren, for your work as it was a civil, I'm lost here. Civil Rights and Human Rights Officer, and I thank you for taking that. And I appreciate that, and I think that you're the right person for that. But thank you for that. With that, Mr. Jambrone, do you have anything?
No, thank you.
No? Okay. Mr. Hawk? No? Mr. Forrester? Ms. Powell Thornton?
Nothing tonight.
Ms. Mello?
Let's say something.
Usually I can't keep you guys quiet.
Thank you for your communication and visibility. Visibility excellent in the first month. It's been much appreciated.
Yeah. Yes, thank you. Some things going on in the high school, Mr. Paskey.
Sure. I'm hoping that by the next board meeting, we'll be able to approve a driver education program under the auspices of COVID, where the parents actually do the driving with the students. And we have an instructor in mind. Hopefully we'll be able to appoint that at the next meeting. And that will be done via a virtual instruction. And so I think it's come together. So I'm anxious to be able to get that underway.
Good.
We did just purchase licenses for a program called Edgenuity to start doing some credit recovery for students. As I mentioned at the last board meeting, obviously there are some gaps in our students' knowledge as we've had fewer class meetings and shorter class periods in some cases since March of last year, and we're going to be using that to focus on filling in some of those gaps. So I'm excited to get that started. Also tomorrow I'm going to be attending a workshop on a program called iReady that we currently use in our school through middle school. They've expanded into the high school, and it's an opportunity for us to look at how our students are achieving in mathematics and ELA and gathering data and using that data to make better decisions. And the nice thing about it, if we end up choosing to use this in the high school, it will be a continuum through our district. So we'll be able to look back and see growth of students and make better decisions. Because that's something that has been dear to me as we've been doing kind of deep dive and data where we look at students who maybe have dropped out and going back through, all the way back to kindergarten and looking at the data all the way back. And we have data, and unfortunately a lot of it is older data that was in file folders and just very difficult to follow. It takes a lot of time to do. And using this, it will be very streamlined and be able to give us better information and a lot faster.
So that would help us identify students at risk earlier?
Yes.
Wonderful.
And it'll help us to make better decisions when students get to high school for situations like for additional interventions and academic intervention services, those types of things. So I think it's a plus. Hopefully it will be a good program. I'll find out more about it tomorrow.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Paskey.
Sorry, just one question. Are there any updates, or what is the speculation on Regents exams for this year?
I have not heard. Speculation is just that, speculation.
Yeah, for sure.
I look at Buffalo, for example, who hasn't come back yet, and some other larger schools, and I just don't know how we're going to be able to provide a fair Regents exam to all students throughout the state. I can't imagine it going off, but then again, it could happen. I mean, the AP exams are all still on, and now we have 3 different choices for the AP exams that have just come out. So we're going to have to look at 3 different windows when kids can take it, and there's a lot of information that we're sorting through right now that just came out this past week.
Okay, super, thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Paskey. Ms. Troutman, the middle school, what's going on?
Well, we got a lot going on. Let's
Great.
see. Well, Mr. Paskey talked about iReady, so we are doing our benchmarking with iReady. It's our winter assessment, just seeing growth from the fall to winter. So we're doing that in ELA and math right now. As we heard, modified girls basketball started this week, and we have about 17 girls who are participating. So I was in the gym today while they were practicing. They're learning a lot. They look like they're having a great time, and their first game is next week already. It's a very short season. It's only 3 weeks, but the girls are very excited, and we're glad they have the opportunity to participate. I do want to thank Mr. Lauer for, setting up all the Facebook Lives. When they're in the middle school, they'll put it on a Facebook Live. If they're in the main gym, then it'll be on YouTube, so that we'll be able to enjoy it along with the girls. I do want to thank Chris Anderson. That was so great of him and his family to provide us some extra books. We were kind of looking for some because our sixth grader class is so large, and he just stepped up to the plate and said, you know, we would love to donate those, so I really want to thank him. It was much appreciated. The middle school started a newsletter this year, and I'm excited because next month we are going to be working with Mr. Cook's class. They are doing some research and writing some articles, and so we're going to feature some of those in our newsletter. A lot going on.
So how many girls do we typically have in a modified team?
Well, there's two. There's an A team and a B team, and so about 20 is usually a nice number.
Okay.
So we have about
Okay.
17, so that's really,
Yeah.
a nice number
That's a
for
typical.
this
Yeah.
year.
Great. I'm sure they appreciate getting together and having fun.
Yes.
Yeah, instead of being bound up at home. Yeah. Mr. Drawlinger, the elementary school.
Yeah, at the elementary level, we have our clubs, our after-school clubs up and running. So our Run and Serve club meets weekly after school, and they're currently raising money for leukemia and lymphoma. They're doing the Pennies for Patients challenge. So every morning, the kids are getting on the announcements, and we're collecting our pennies, so they like that. And this year we had to switch Select Chorus from a course to more of an after-school club, but we have that other going on right now as well. They're working on videotaping some of the performances and posting those to YouTube and Facebook as well. So they're really excited about that. And tomorrow the high school's Honor Society will be coming down. They're going to be decorating the halls with Valentine's for the kids. And I saw them, they were doing it in the office today. So it should be exciting. There's a lot of hearts. So that'll be a nice little surprise for our elementary school kids. And then in the classrooms, a couple of our classrooms are participating in, it's a statewide bird migration tagging activity where we set up a bunch of bird feeders outside of our classrooms, and then the kids, they identify the type of bird it is, and then they register that bird, and then hopefully other schools will do the same, and then we can track where the birds kind of travel around New York State. So we got a bunch of our classrooms in 3rd, 4th grade doing that right now, and it's pretty cool. The kids are really into it. So if you're down that way, we got a lot of bird feeders. So that's what we got going on.
Good. That's a great activity for the wintertime.
It's cool.
Yeah. Mr. Forbes?
Nothing out of the ordinary this evening.
No? We starting with the budget shortly?
Yes, we've got most of it together. We're waiting on a couple pieces from BOCES, which are supposed to occur this week. Dr. Zodax and I already had a couple of preliminary conversations about that, and we're looking to bring it to the board soon.
Okay. We look forward to it.
Hi there.
Hi, Ms. Farrell. How are you?
I'm good.
You're not hiding from me, are you?
No, I'm Mr. Forbes was talking on stuff. So sure, I had a couple of little positive things I just wanted to highlight. So, life continues to throw us curveballs, and our special ed students and staff are responding with their usual grace under pressure. So our high school staff, self-contained class had to switch to remote services literally overnight last week due to COVID-based restrictions. And I was happy to learn that every student has logged on for virtual learning for each session planned. And our proactive classroom staff had a plan laid out in advance for just this scenario. Our parents have been really supportive and flexible, and I wanted to take this opportunity to recognize this group of students, their parents, and the staff that have really just been simply awesome. So on just another kind of feel-good note, our 1st and 2nd grade self-contained students are currently engaged in a project this week called Compliment Jars. So the students are learning to give compliments to peers and adults. And thinking ahead to Valentine's Day, they're writing their compliments on hearts and placing those hearts in jars that go into the classmates or adults they're complimenting. So these students, their teacher reports are shining in their self-contained model. They're making steady academic gains, and I wanted to give them a recognition. And also along similar lines of building social skills and positive character traits, our 1st grade integrated co-taught classroom is using a book series called The Power to Choose, and students are learning that choices have both positive and negative outcomes, and our teachers are helping them learn the power of positive choices. So lots of good things continuing to happen at all levels.
Great.
Thanks.
Great.
And hey, I do have an update from Mrs. Piper, who could not be here tonight, but on Wednesday, February 3rd, was the annual Global Day of Play, and Wheelock jumped right into that with a variety of activities throughout the day, some inside, some outside. The kids had a great time together while maintaining all of the COVID-19 precautions throughout that day. The students are now currently preparing for Valentine's Day, as we've heard a couple times here tonight, making some decorations from home and for their friends. Mrs. Appleby, the art teacher, is currently working with kindergarten students on creating some things for the classroom walls and the hallways at the building. So things are going well at Wheelock, and sounds like everybody is having a good time enjoying learning with a little play mixed in.
That's a good thing. That's a good thing. Mr. Drellinger, I failed to ask you, we've got the Learn to Serve, I think you said, was doing a pennies
Yeah.
for leukemia.
Yep.
How do I drop my pennies off?
Oh, wow.
What were the dates?
It runs through the end of next week, but if you pick your favorite classroom, you can kind of donate them on behalf of the classroom, because it's a competition between classrooms to see which one raises the most.
So is any of the classes making cookies where a Board of Education member might want to stop in? And
I can get on that for you. Cool.
Okay.
Yeah, so our goal is $2,021 this year.
2021.
That's the goal.
Okay.
So,
Well, we'll see what we can do to help that out.
yep, sure, thank you.
Great. Okay. If there's nothing else, we expect to go into executive session to discuss some matters pertaining to particular personnel. We will come out of that executive session and immediately adjourn. So we won't be conducting any additional business. So with that, the meeting is essentially over. But if I could get a motion and a second to go into executive session. Ms. Paul Fortner, and a second. Ms. Goa. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We are in executive session at 6:48.